Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, and not every relationship is meant to last. Some people are sent as lessons, while others as blessings. But the challenge is in discerning which is which. Toxic relationships are those that drain your energy, distort your vision, and ultimately sabotage your progress. These are the people who consistently bring negativity into your life, people who speak against your dreams, discourage your growth, and belittle your potential. It's not always the loud detractors you need to be cautious of. Sometimes it's the subtle, quiet influences that slowly poison your mindset. These individuals can come disguised as friends, family members, or even colleagues. They may appear supportive on the surface, but beneath that facade, they harbor jealousy, resentment, or an unwillingness to see you thrive. Toxicity doesn't always come in the form of blatant arguments or obvious mistreatment. It can be as simple as a constant undercurrent of negativity, manipulation, or control. You have to realize that your time and energy are sacred. You cannot afford to be surrounded by people who deplete you, people who sow seeds of doubt, fear, and discouragement. These relationships weigh heavily on your spirit and keep you from becoming the person you are destined to be. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hold you back the most, whether intentionally or unintentionally. There comes a point where you must make a conscious decision to step away. This doesn't require dramatic exits, loud confrontations, or grand announcements. In fact, the most powerful separations are often done quietly and respectfully. You don't need to explain yourself or seek approval for distancing yourself from those who no longer align with your path. It's about self-preservation, about understanding that your peace, your purpose, and your progress matter more than maintaining toxic ties. Often, the fear of being alone or misunderstood keeps us tethered to relationships that no longer serve us. But here's the truth: the moment you release what is toxic, you create space for what is healthy. The most significant battles we face are not external, they're internal. They occur within the silent corners of our minds, shaping how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Negative thought patterns are like invisible chains, holding us back from reaching our full potential. They are insidious, creeping into our daily thoughts, conversations, and actions, often without us even realizing it. These thoughts are the whispers that tell us we aren't good enough, that we don't deserve success, that failure is inevitable, or that we're incapable of achieving the dreams we hold dear. What makes these negative thought patterns so dangerous is their subtlety. At first, they seem harmless, just fleeting doubts or passing fears. But over time, they take root, becoming entrenched in our subconscious, influencing the decisions we make, the risks we avoid, and the opportunities we let slip by. These thoughts slowly erode our confidence, convincing us that we are less than we truly are. Before we know it, they become a part of our identity, a lens through which we view ourselves and the world. Many of us have inherited these patterns from our past, perhaps from childhood experiences, societal expectations, or repeated failures. They may come from voices we've internalized over the years, from people who told us we weren't enough, or from experiences that made us doubt our capabilities. But the origins of these thoughts are less important than the impact they have on our lives today. Negative thought patterns shape the way we approach challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth, we begin to view them as confirmations of our inadequacy. Every setback feels like proof that we aren't meant to succeed, and every failure reinforces a narrative of defeat. These patterns also create a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we consistently tell ourselves that we are not capable or worthy, we begin to act in ways that align with those beliefs. We shy away from challenges, avoiding opportunities that could lead to success because we are convinced we will fail. In doing so, we rob ourselves of the chance to grow, to learn, and to discover what we are truly capable of. The mind is powerful, and when it is filled with negativity, it can sabotage our progress in ways we don't even realize. Negative thought patterns also affect our relationships. When we see ourselves through a lens of self-doubt, we project those insecurities onto others. We may believe that people won't value us or that they will eventually leave, leading us to push them away preemptively. We may settle for relationships and situations that are beneath our worth because we don't believe we deserve better. This cycle of negativity isolates us, trapping us in a space where growth and connection become difficult, if not impossible. Another danger of negative thought patterns is that they distort reality. They convince us that our worst fears and insecurities are the truth when in fact they are merely perceptions. We begin to interpret events through this distorted lens, focusing on the negatives and overlooking the positives. Successes are downplayed as luck or flukes, while failures are magnified as reflections of our core inadequacies. This distorted thinking becomes a prison of our own making, where we limit ourselves based on fears and assumptions that are often far removed from reality. It is essential to understand that these negative thought patterns are not fixed. They are not permanent. They are habits of the mind, and like any habit, they can be broken. But it requires a conscious effort, a deliberate decision to challenge the thoughts that hold us back. The first step is becoming aware of them, recognizing when they creep in, and identifying their triggers. Only then can we begin to dismantle them and replace them with thoughts that empower rather than diminish. One of the greatest tools in breaking free from negative thought patterns is self-awareness. By paying attention to your internal dialogue, you can start to identify the negative thoughts that have become ingrained. Every time you catch yourself thinking, "I can't do this," or "I'm not good enough," you must stop and challenge that thought. Ask yourself, is this really true? Or is this just fear talking more often than not? You'll find that your negative thoughts are based on fear, not fact. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, they all manifest in our minds as limitations that aren't real. Replacing these thoughts with positive, constructive ones takes time, but it's necessary for personal growth. Instead of allowing negative thought patterns to dominate your mind, practice affirming your worth, your abilities, and your potential. Start each day by affirming the truth of who you are, not the lies that negativity tells you. You are capable, you are deserving, you are equipped to handle the challenges that come your way. Negative thought patterns also thrive on repetition. The more you allow these thoughts to circulate in your mind, the more they become your default mode of thinking. But just as they've been built through repetition, they can be dismantled by replacing them with new, empowering thoughts. Repeatedly affirming your strengths, your capabilities, and your value can begin to rewire your brain, shifting your mindset from one of doubt and fear to one of confidence and possibility. Additionally, surrounding yourself with positive influences is crucial in this process. Just as negative thought patterns can be shaped by negative people, positive ones can be nurtured by being in environments that uplift and inspire you. Seek out individuals who encourage your growth, who believe in your potential, and who speak life into your dreams. Their words will help reinforce the positive changes you are making in your thought life. Finally, remember that breaking free from negative thought patterns is not a one-time event, it is a continuous journey. The mind will always try to revert to what is familiar, especially during moments of stress or uncertainty. But each time you catch a negative thought and choose to replace it with something empowering, you are taking a step toward freedom. Over time, this new way of thinking will become your default, and the chains of negativity will lose their grip. Our lives are a reflection of our habits. The small, often unnoticed actions we repeat day after day shape our reality and determine the direction of our future. Yet many of us carry habits that do more harm than good habits that steal our time, sap our energy, and divert our focus from what truly matters. Unproductive habits are like silent saboteurs. They subtly hold us back from reaching our potential, keeping us in a cycle of mediocrity. These habits can take many forms. Some are obvious, like spending excessive time on social media or watching television. These activities might offer a brief escape, but they often consume hours that could be spent working toward our goals, investing in meaningful relationships, or developing new skills. Others are more insidious, small procrastinations, consistently arriving late, or failing to plan effectively. They seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they compound, leading to missed opportunities, rushed decisions, and stagnant growth. One of the most unproductive habits is procrastination. It is the act of delaying what is necessary, convincing ourselves that there will be a better time to act. Procrastination is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of imperfection, or even fear of success. We put off important tasks, telling ourselves we'll get to them later, but that later never seems to come. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before we know it, we've wasted precious time that could have been used to advance our lives and pursue our dreams. The habit of procrastination doesn't just affect our to-do lists, it creates a mindset of avoidance, where we run from challenges rather than face them head-on. Another unproductive habit is multitasking. In a world that glorifies busyness, many of us pride ourselves on juggling multiple tasks at once, believing it makes us more efficient. But the truth is, multitasking divides our attention and reduces the quality of our work. It scatters our focus, leaving us exhausted but unaccomplished at the end of the day. Studies have shown that switching between tasks actually takes more time and results in more errors than focusing on one thing at a time. Yet many of us fall into the trap of trying to do everything at once, and as a result, we accomplish very little. This habit of divided focus keeps us from being fully present in the moment, from giving our best effort to the task at hand. Overcommitment is another unproductive habit that many struggle with. We say yes to too many things, meetings, projects, social events, without considering whether they align with our priorities. We spread ourselves thin trying to please everyone and do everything, but end up burned out and ineffective. This habit of overcommitment is rooted in the fear of missing out or disappointing others, but in reality, it often leads to us disappointing ourselves. When we are constantly running from one obligation to the next, we lose the time and energy needed to invest in what truly matters: our personal growth, our relationships, and our well-being. Then there are the more subtle, unproductive habits like poor time management. Many of us start the day with good intentions, but end it feeling like we've accomplished little. We drift from task to task without a clear plan, allowing distractions to pull us in different directions. We might start a project, but before we've finished, we check our email, respond to a message, or browse the internet. Each small distraction eats away at our focus, making it harder to complete tasks efficiently. This lack of structure not only wastes time, but also creates a sense of frustration, as we feel like we're constantly busy but not moving forward. Another unproductive habit is the failure to prioritize. Not everything on our to-do list is of equal importance, yet many of us treat every task as if it carries the same weight. We spend time on small, insignificant tasks because they are easier to complete, while avoiding the more challenging, yet crucial, tasks that could have a significant impact on our lives. This habit of prioritizing the easy over the essential keeps us stuck in a cycle of busyness without progress. We may feel productive because we're checking things off our list, but in reality, we're not advancing in the areas that truly matter. Lack of self-discipline is another unproductive habit that holds many back. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Without it, even the best intentions and grandest visions remain unfulfilled. Lack of self-discipline manifests in many ways hitting the snooze button instead of getting up early to work on a project, skipping the gym because it's easier to stay in bed, or abandoning a difficult task because it requires too much effort. Each time we give in to laziness or avoidance, we strengthen the habit of self-sabotage. Over time, this erodes our confidence and prevents us from achieving the success we desire. Unproductive habits also include spending time with the wrong people. Who we surround ourselves with has a significant impact on our lives. If we regularly spend time with individuals who lack ambition, complain constantly, or discourage our dreams, it's only a matter of time before their negativity rubs off on us. This is an unproductive habit because it drains our energy and limits our potential. Instead of being inspired and challenged by those around us, we become complacent, settling for less than we are capable of achieving. There's also the habit of perfectionism, which many people mistakenly believe is a virtue. While striving for excellence is important, perfectionism is a trap that often leads to paralysis. It's the belief that if something isn't perfect, it's not worth doing at all. Perfectionists spend excessive time on minor details, fearing that any flaw will lead to failure or criticism. This habit of seeking perfection leads to missed deadlines, unfinished projects, and opportunities that pass us by because we were too focused on making everything flawless. In reality, progress is more important than perfection. Taking imperfect action is often better than taking no action at all. Unproductive habits extend to our personal lives as well. Staying up late scrolling through our phones, eating unhealthy food out of convenience, or neglecting exercise because it feels like a chore, these small habits compound over time, affecting our energy, mood, and overall well-being. When we don't take care of our bodies and minds, we lack the vitality needed to pursue our goals with full force. Health is foundational to success, and unproductive habits in this area rob us of the strength and focus we need to thrive. One of the most subtle yet pervasive obstacles to personal growth is the constant need for external validation. It's a craving that many of us carry, often unconsciously, seeking approval and affirmation from others to feel worthy or accepted. This need starts early in life as we are conditioned to look to those around us, parents, teachers, friends, society, for validation of our worth and abilities. Over time, it becomes ingrained, shaping how we perceive ourselves and how we navigate the world. The need for external validation stems from a deeper desire to belong and to be seen as valuable. We all want to feel acknowledged, respected, and admired, and there is nothing inherently wrong with that. The problem arises when we become overly dependent on others' opinions and approval to define our identity, our choices, and our self-worth. When this happens, we place the power of our own validation in the hands of others, leaving ourselves vulnerable to their judgments, biases, and limitations. Living for the approval of others leads to a cycle of insecurity. When we rely on external validation, our sense of self becomes tied to what others think of us. We begin to measure our worth by how many likes, compliments, or affirmations we receive. If the approval comes, we feel good, but when it doesn't, we begin to question ourselves. This creates an emotional roller coaster where our confidence rises and falls based on the fleeting opinions of those around us. This is a fragile and unsustainable way to live, because it means that our sense of worth is always in the hands of someone else, and those hands are not always kind or reliable. When we seek validation from others, we also begin to shape our actions, decisions, and even our personalities to fit what we believe will gain us approval. Instead of living authentically, we mold ourselves to meet the expectations of those around us, often suppressing our true desires, values, and potential. This may show up in many ways: choosing a career that others deem successful, following trends to fit in, or suppressing opinions and ideas out of fear of rejection. The need for validation keeps us in a constant state of performance, where we act not from a place of authenticity, but from a place of fear of not being liked, not being accepted, or not being good enough. Over time, this external focus erodes our connection to our true selves. We become disconnected from our own inner compass, relying on the opinions of others to tell us who we should be, what we should do, and how we should feel. In doing so, we lose sight of our own purpose and values, and the more we rely on external validation, the more difficult it becomes to trust ourselves. We stop listening to our intuition, and instead we look outward, waiting for someone else to give us permission to be ourselves. The constant need for validation also breeds a lack of fulfillment. Even when we achieve the approval or recognition we seek, it often feels hollow because it is not rooted in genuine self-acceptance. No matter how much praise or admiration we receive, it never feels like enough, because we have become dependent on the next compliment, the next acknowledgement, the next round of applause. The fulfillment that comes from external validation is fleeting, and it requires constant replenishment. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom. The more we pour in, the more we need, but it never truly satisfies. This need for validation can also lead to a life of limitation. When we constantly seek approval from others, we become afraid of stepping outside of the box that society or those around us have created for us. We fear judgment or criticism, so we stay in the lane that feels safest, even if it's not the lane that leads us to our true purpose. This fear of rejection stifles creativity, innovation, and boldness. We stop taking risks because we worry about what others will think. We stop pursuing our dreams because we fear that we will fail in front of an audience. This craving for validation keeps us playing small, never fully embracing the magnitude of what we are capable of. Another insidious aspect of seeking external validation is that it leaves us vulnerable to manipulation. When others know that we are dependent on their approval, they can wield that approval like a tool, using it to control our actions and decisions. Whether intentional or not, people can exploit our need for validation to influence how we behave, pushing us to conform to their desires and expectations rather than following our own. In this way, the need for external validation can lead us into relationships and environments where we are not truly free, but rather shaped and constrained by the expectations of others. The need for validation also affects how we handle criticism and rejection. When we rely on others to affirm our worth, any form of criticism or rejection feels personal, as though it is an attack on our very identity. We become defensive, overly sensitive, and resistant to feedback because we have tied our sense of self so tightly to what others think of us. This makes it difficult to grow and learn from constructive criticism, as we interpret every negative comment as a reflection of our inadequacy. Over time, this fear of rejection can lead us to avoid situations where we might face criticism altogether, further limiting our potential for growth. At its core, the need for external validation prevents us from developing genuine self-confidence. True confidence comes from within it, is rooted in knowing and accepting who you are, independent of anyone else's opinions or approval. When we constantly seek validation from others, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to build that internal sense of worth. Instead of looking outward for approval, we must learn to look inward and affirm our value, not based on what others say or think, but based on our own understanding of who we are. This shift from external to internal validation is not easy. It requires a deep level of self-awareness and a willingness to confront the insecurities that drive us to seek approval in the first place. It requires us to detach from the opinions of others and learn to stand firm in our own beliefs, values, and worth. But until we make this shift, we will always be chasing a form of validation that is temporary, inconsistent, and ultimately unsatisfying. Moreover, the need for external validation limits our ability to experience true freedom. When we are constantly worried about what others think of us, we are not free to express ourselves fully or to live in alignment with our deepest desires and passions. We are always holding back, editing ourselves, or filtering our thoughts and actions through the lens of what others might think. This need for validation becomes a form of self-censorship, where we silence our true voice in favor of saying or doing what will gain approval from others. In conclusion, eliminating toxic relationships, negative thought patterns, unproductive habits, and the need for external validation is essential for personal growth and fulfillment. These invisible barriers, often embedded in our daily lives, prevent us from reaching our highest potential. By quietly removing these elements, we reclaim our power, clarity, and purpose. True transformation begins when we shift our focus inward, grounding our worth in self-awareness rather than external influences. This journey requires courage, discipline, and a commitment to living authentically, but the rewards are immeasurable. By freeing ourselves from what no longer serves us, we create space for growth, meaningful relationships, and a life aligned with our true values. Each step away from negativity and self-doubt brings us closer to the peace, purpose, and success we are capable of achieving. Let this be the start of a renewed focus on what truly matters.